Gaslighting. You hear that word everywhere these days, right? It's become this go-to term for a really specific, really nasty kind of manipulation. But what if I told you that the playbook for it, the core tactics, was actually written down almost 2,000 years ago? Let's dive into this surprisingly ancient art.
Okay, first, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. Gaslighting, at its heart, is all about making someone doubt themselves. It's a calculated attempt to overwrite their reality, to make them question their own memories, their own sanity, even what they see with their own eyes. It's a really disorienting and, frankly, a powerful form of control.
And that brings us to the big question for today. Is this whole concept a new thing? A diagnosis that's unique to our modern psychological age? Or is it something much older? A timeless tactic, an ancient art of manipulation that people have been using for centuries? To figure that out, we're going to break down this ancient letter from the New Testament, the second letter of Peter, which honestly reads like a masterclass in spotting manipulation. We'll look at how these so-called scoffers erase the past, how they use ridicule as a weapon, how they twist the truth and build a reality all their own. And then we'll look at the ancient antidote to it all.
So the very first tactic in this ancient playbook is to just erase the past. It's a kind of revisionism, and it's designed to make you feel like your entire foundation is built on nothing but sand. The scoffers in this text, they make this incredibly bold, sweeping claim, hey, absolutely nothing has ever changed. The message here is that history is just this flat, predictable, unbroken line. Some people call this immutable uniformitarianism, which is a mouthful, I know, but it's just a fancy way of saying things have always been this way and they're always going to be this way.
So right away, you have this massive clash of worldviews. The scoffer says history is this steady, unchanging thing. But the text they're fighting against, it describes a reality that's been punctuated by huge, world-altering divine interventions. We're talking about the creation of the world and its later destruction by a global flood. Totally different pictures of reality.
And here is the absolute core of the manipulation. The text says it's not just a mistake, it's not a lack of information. It says, for this, they willingly are ignorant of. To be willingly ignorant doesn't just mean you don't know something. It means you refuse to know. It's a deliberate choice to ignore facts that just don't fit your story.
All right, so let's move on to the second weapon in this playbook and just see how this builds. When just erasing the facts isn't quite enough, the attack shifts from the evidence to you, the person, using the powerful weapon of ridicule. So instead of just denying history, the tactic becomes this direct, personal taunt. They ask mockingly, so, where is the promise of his coming? Now, this is not a genuine question. The sources call it intimidation by scorn. It's an argument by ridicule. It's not designed to get an answer. It's designed to make you feel foolish and naive for even hoping. And this is a multi-pronged emotional assault. The whole goal is to make a mock of sin, to prey on those natural disappointments you feel when you're waiting for something, and to just dismiss core beliefs as nothing more than fabricated fantasies. The ultimate aim is to put believers out of countenance, to totally fluster and embarrass them into just shutting up. And that leads us to the third, and maybe the most insidious tactic of all. Not just ignoring the truth or mocking it, but actively twisting it. Now, this is where it gets really subtle and really dangerous. The source text says these false teachers wrest or even torture the scriptures. Just think about that word for a second. Torture. They are straining and twisting a shared source of truth, literally forcing a meaning out of it that was never there, just to make it support their own agenda. It's taking something you both trust and turning it into a weapon against you. And there's a clear, predatory process to this. First, they target the unlearned and unstable, people who aren't on solid footing. Then, they strain that original text to create their own distorted version of the truth. And the final devastating goal? To lead people away from their own steadfastness, to completely pull the rug out from under their faith and their convictions. So, we've seen the tactics: deny, ridicule, and distort. But why? Why would someone go to all this trouble? Well, the text is very, very clear that the real motive has nothing to do with some kind of intellectual purity. On the surface, the message they're selling is one of liberation and Christian freedom. Sounds good, right?
But the text pulls back the curtain. The real underlying motive is to create a license for walking after their own lusts, a justification for indulging their own desires, especially around greed and sensuality. And this motive is just timeless. It's wild. Listen to this brutally honest confession from the 20th century writer Aldous Huxley. He said, "We objected to the morality because it interfered with our sexual freedom." I mean, wow. It's the exact same motive, just stated bluntly centuries later. So ultimately, this entire manipulative project is about building a worldview that lets them off the hook. By denying history, denying promises, and denying a final reckoning, they construct a reality for themselves and their followers that is completely free from any moral accountability. Okay, let's pull all of this together. We've just walked through a pretty sophisticated, ancient playbook for psychological manipulation. So what's the defense? What's the antidote here? First, just a quick recap. The ancient gaslighting playbook we've looked at really boils down to 3 core moves. Deny the facts of history, attack a person's perception with ridicule, and then distort a shared source of truth to confuse and destabilize them. The antidote offered in the text is actually remarkably simple. It's not about winning an argument or fighting fire with fire. Instead, it's about grounding yourself so deeply in stable, steadfast knowledge that you just become unshakable. You become far less vulnerable to these kinds of attempts to destabilize you. And that's why this ancient text is still so unbelievably relevant. It leaves us with a final, crucial question to think about. If these specific tactics, denying reality, weaponizing ridicule, twisting shared truths to fit an agenda, are truly ancient, how and where do they show up in our world today?